All right, I think that's it, you guys. I think we're live now and we're ready to go. We're ready to start our fifth night of Coffee with the Candidates. Thanks for all the candidates that came out and the families and supporters that came out with you guys as well tonight. And thanks for everyone that's catching us live on Facebook. Livingston Parish News, you've been a fantastic partner throughout all this. McHugh has been behind the microphone asking all the important questions. And without any further, we're going to jump right in with Mr. Buddy Mincey. Buddy, if you want to come up, just be a couple minutes introduction, and then McHugh is going to start with some questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today, and I want to thank you, McHugh and John, for y'all hosting this. I think it's great to get information out. And if you've never been to the Cavalier House, you need to come check it out. It's a great venue. It's a beautiful place and got a lot of good books here. So thank y'all for having us. So my name is Buddy Mincey Jr. I am the state rep from Denham Springs and Walker area. I've lived here all my life. I live about 10 minutes south of the interstate. And I'm here with my wife tonight, Michelle. We've been married for the 30 best years of her life. And our best contribution to this world is we've raised three beautiful daughters, three wonderful daughters. My oldest is a nurse, surgical nurse. Our middle is a teacher. And my youngest is in her third year of vet school. And Michelle's in her third year of teaching at 7th Ward Elementary. So we want to thank her for her service. Thank you for being here. But I've lived here all my life. Never once wanted to be an elected official. In fact, just the opposite. My dad was a parish councilman. I lived next to him. I'm a junior. I used to get half of his phone calls. And, I never wanted to be in that position where I was just in the public service. This was an interest to me. And my wife went to a school board meeting for an issue going on in the parish. And I went just to be by her side. And I walked in as somebody who would never run for a position, and I walked out as somebody who said, I'm going to run for the school board. And the reason I wanted to run because, I saw an opportunity for me to apply my leadership to something that I love very much, which is my school system and my parish. And it was 13. We did that for 13 years, and it was 13 of the most rewarding years possible. Really had a great time, enjoyed making a difference. It was very rewarding for me. And, after every legislative session, the policymakers in Baton Rouge were passing legislation and policy on us as a school system that was detrimental. There's been a movement across the state, happened in Bobby Jindal's second term. They've been trying to privatize public education for profit, and all the things that what they called educational reform. They were painting this brush across the state to try to improve failing school systems, but it was creating collateral damage for the ones that are not. So I got involved in the legislative process, really involved in the fact that I would reach out to all my legislators after every session, before every session, and I just got engaged in it. Senator Pope is the current senator. He was actually state rep. He was moving on to run for the Senate. It was an open seat, and I was asked to run for it. And it was something that I really didn't know if I wanted to do. I was very comfortable and very content where I was, but eventually, it's something that we decided to do. And I really underestimated how much it was going to be rewarding to me, because not only can I fight for my school system, I can fight for our public schools across the state, and then I can do so much for the state, for the rest of the parish, and I'll explain that a little bit too. Professionally, before I get into my years as a legislator, professionally 35 years in the petrochemical industry. I was a safety director, quality control director, mechanical superintendent. My career, the soft skills you develop as a contractor, having to be accountable, having to be resourceful, having to solve problems, having to just work with people. I think my career really prepared me to be an effective elected official, and it worked very well for me. As a state rep, of course, went to the Capitol, interested in the attack on public education, and I'm an education champion at the Capitol. I fight for public education. Education is the most important. It's the economic engine of our parish, and if 2/3 of our parish live here. They work outside the parish, but they live here because of our quality of life, our safe communities, and our school system. So naturally, at the Capitol, I fight for our school system. I fight to defend it. That growth in our parish has created a tremendous amount of growing pains. We all see the traffic. We all sit in the same traffic. That's something else that I've really worked on significantly. We have made strides in capital investment in our parish. In 4 short years, we've doubled the capital outlay investment from the state in the Livingston Parish. We got more roads being planned, designed, and constructed in this district right now than we've ever had before. I'm very proud of that effort, what we've been able to do. Senator Pope and I work really close together, and we've worked really hard on that. And the other thing I've done is flood protection. You know, I live about, 3/4 of a mile from Amite River, and I've been around floods all my life. You know, my friends, my family, I'd never flooded until 2016, but I can remember the '83 flood. And staying all night, helping people sandbag, pumping out houses. Every time flood comes in, I activate and go help people. And so I've been associated with the floods all my life. Never really knew what it was until water got into my house. Gave me a whole different perspective of it. But I fight for flood protection. I don't think anybody has fought for flood protection more in Livingston Parish than what I have. Some of the things that we've been able to do. Our parish is in the Amite River Basin, and it's the Amite River Basin Commission. They are empowered to have floodplain management over 7 parishes, including ours. In those 7, it's been around for 42 years. The problem is they've only done one project in 42 years, and that's the co-meet diversion. So the only reason the co-meet diversion is being completed is because Garrett Graves got it funded. So we've got an instrument that's over floodplain protection for 7 parishes that's basically not done anything but one project. When I started passing some legislation, looking at some legislation, a lot of my colleagues wanted to disband the Basin Commission, and I saw it as an opportunity to make it better. So we had CPRA do a study, come back with some suggestions. We have completely revamped the Amite River Basin Commission. We got new commissioners, we got a new executive director, and we've got them some funding. We got them started off with $8 million for planning, and just recently, because of some efforts, they were awarded $100 million for floodplain management in that basin. So we've got an instrument that's in place that is starting to see some progress that I think is going to bring us to the next level. So, legislatively, I think we've been very successful. I've worked really hard, and this moving to the Senate just allows me to have an opportunity to do more. And I love my parish. I'm very engaged in our parish. If you see me in the community, I'm always out in the community because that's where I want to be. And I'm fortunate my wife wants to be there with me. So we're doing this on this journey together. And we enjoy it, and it's rewarding, and I just want to continue and hopefully do some more in the Senate. So I'd be glad to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, sir. We're going to back up to your time as a contractor or working for a contractor because I want to build up to some things. But before I get there, I do want to say there is nothing like in kind like the Amite River Basin Commission in the state. It's one of one.
That's right.
So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But you mentioned, as you went through your introduction, your time as a safety director for that company. You said that it helped prepare you. Dive in on that for us. Be specific about how that helped you become both a school board member and a legislator.
Well, I think all 3 tiers of my career, quality, safety, and production, they all built upon the other. The biggest thing is just, again, the soft skills of just being able to work with people and try to solve problems. As you know, I worked for Turner Industries for a long time, worked at BASF. We were an alliance contractor, and alliance contractor is responsible for every facet of a construction of our contractors on a plant. And we had to be accountable. We had to meet schedules. We had to be resourceful. We had to deal with hurricanes. We had to deal with storms. We had to deal with all these things. But not only that, but the technical part of it for me, being able to relate to safety issues, being able to relate to how that can impact any industry in our state, even being related to quality control and making sure that we're doing a quality job and understanding specifications and understanding the construction part of it. And on the production end, for me, it's just a matter of just getting things done. It's just that simple. I'm a guy that believes in working hard. I show up for work. I work hard, and I believe in doing the best that I can. So that production minded, makes you want to, just get things done. It's just that simple. For me, on the school board, I was always able to have the latitude to be aggressive on getting things done, facility improvements and that type of thing. And the 2016 flood came in, and having to deal with FEMA tempered that for me, and it really made me understand the process. As much as we hate the process, the governmental process, it slows things down. And in our situation for the FEMA, for the reimbursements for the schools, we had a choice of either doing it their way or not getting funded. And we had over $100 million in loss. So we didn't have a choice. So that being tempered and being able to accept that there is a process to follow has also made me, it's given me a good temperament to go to the Capitol. Now, I'm not happy with the delay, but I'm, the production end of me wants to do everything I can to improve it and to improve those processes and to challenge those processes. DOTD, for instance, it takes 5 years once you get funding, it's estimated that it gets 5 years before you can get a project bid and ready to go to work. And that's truly just unacceptable. So, my philosophy is, how can we make that better? And I've talked to DOTD about it, and that's just one example of many of just trying to take something that's existing and just make it better. And I think as a contractor, that's just your mentality. That's just, especially if you're in upper management.
So you brought up FEMA's involvement post flood and your involvement working with FEMA, such that it was. Taking that experience, you already touched on it. What did that help teach you as you moved into a legislative position when you won the race in 2019?
Yeah, so the first thing about the flood for me was, again, we were still in a position where we could make things happen. So if you imagine, I think we had 19 sites that flooded. We had 14 campuses that flooded in Dillon Springs alone. We had 10. We had over $100 million in loss. We were back to school in 20 days, and we had 3 modular campuses constructed in 108, which is just, I think those numbers are correct, but that's just phenomenal. We were so far ahead of everybody else because we all worked and pulled in the same direction. But as far as the legislative process, just understanding the steps and the funding and the limitations and the requirements and the guidelines, all those things. I mean, it's easy to get frustrated when you're trying to get things done in government, but understanding there's a why and understanding how to try to work within that, it just makes you better.
You have been in the legislature for 4 years. Or gone through not quite 4 years technically, but you have been through 4 sessions. The first one was difficult and contentious as a freshman because not 30 days before it happened, we had the C word, COVID. How did your experience before then help you navigate being a freshman, but also being a freshman in a very difficult legislative session?
Yeah, so let me just tell you this, trying to be prepared for a position. When I was elected to the school board, I actually attended school board meetings for an entire year. I never missed a meeting. And I went to every single meeting. I sat in the back, didn't say a word, didn't ask any questions. I just watched and observed. I watched the processes. I watched the dynamics of the board members. I watched the interactions of it. Whenever I took office as a school board member, I was ready to serve. And I took the same approach when I started getting interested in running for a legislator, is that, I went to sessions, I went to committees, I sat back, I watched. I've always been really blessed with having a phenomenal working relationship with all my predecessors, the Dale Erdies, the Rogers Popes, and the Clay Shea Snyders before I served with him. And we always talked shop, and we always talked about the things that they dealt with. And I really thought when I went to the Capitol that I was prepared to be a legislator. But you have no idea what it's like until you walk in those rails. And, when we first got there, I think we had $460 million in surplus. We were all high-fiving each other and everything was great. And COVID hit. And we came back 5 or 6 weeks later. and we were $1 billion in the hole, so we were trying to recover from that in one of the most horrific times for our state. But I'll tell you this, that one thing I'm very proud of is that, the House, we had two options. We missed 5 or 6 weeks of session, and we could either cancel some bills, not cover as much, but we elected to put our head down and do the work of the people, and we did that. And I'm very proud of that. The Senate, they took a different route. They eliminated all their bills except for the ones that had to, and we didn't eliminate anything. Not much. And so we had some days, 8 hours, 10 hours a day of really just true, deliberation on bills. And, it happened at such a fast pace that it wasn't until the last couple of days of session that I actually looked around and just said, wow, I'm actually in the House, I'm in the Capitol. We hit the ground running so fast and so hard that I wasn't able to soak it in and take it in. But we picked it up really, really quick. And so it's, but I tell you, the biggest thing about being successful at the Capitol is relationships. And you have got to have relationships with your colleagues that you can get things done. You've got to have trust in them. They've got to have trust in you. You've got to recognize the ones that you can't trust. And the most important thing is you got to go there and do your work. And that's a big part. I think that's one of the great things that I've been successful about is I can work with people. And look, you won't find anybody that works harder. I roll up my sleeves and get in the trenches with anybody. And so I think we've been very successful.
Before we get into what I think anybody would say is the 3 pillars of what Livingston Parish is after, which is infrastructure, drainage, and schools, do want to talk about your time on the Ways and Means Committee. I know you're also part of the Rural Caucus, but the Ways and Means Committee, it's where the money is. How has that experience changed or enhanced your time as a legislator, and why do you think it's been so important?
Yeah, so I serve on the Natural Resources, Ways and Means, and Agriculture committees. And when we get there, I think and those are all 3 in my wheelhouse. They really are. And I think when you get there, everybody gets an opportunity to talk to the speaker and say where you want to be placed. And, I got there naturally. I had a desire to be on the education committee. I talked to the speaker about that. But what I told him was, I said, you put me where you need me. And that's where he put me. And I think it was probably the best thing that could have happened. Ways and Means is where all the taxing bills come from, but it's also, most importantly, where all the capital outlay starts. And so my involvement on Ways and Means has been tremendous. All the ITEPs, all the tax reforms, everything that you can imagine, we've heard them. And we've had 2 fiscal sessions. Those fiscal sessions were pretty challenging. There's an appetite at the Capitol to fix our tax structure, and there's an appetite from the legislators. It's just complicated. Everything is so intertwined. It's so difficult. Both legislative sessions that I served on, I was asked to be on a subcommittee before session to try to prepare some bills that we can go and do true tax reform. The first time we went through about a 5 or 6 month process. We met every 2 weeks. We scrutinized every department. We scrutinized every bill. And at the end, we were told, hey, we're going to bring legislation that we're going to look at proposing for session. So I was really excited. Here we go. We're fixing to get into the nuts and bolts of this. But then they brought out all the bills that had been filed for the last 10 or 12 years, and they were all the same. So, basically the same, but, the effort to move that needle on complicated issues takes a lot of time. And, and sometimes, and historically, we've not been able to move that needle on tax reform. We've not been able to move that needle on tort reform. But I'm very proud of the fact that this last session we did. Now, we didn't fix the problems, and it wasn't, there's a lot more work to be done. But I think recognizing the fact that it does take incremental, and that's frustrating for somebody who's production minded like myself. But, you can't get in there by yourself and change it. You got to work within it and try to work it the best you can. And I think we've done that. So
getting into the issues, you got about 13 minutes left. So just kind of want to prime you on that one. Let's start with infrastructure, specifically roads. You mentioned quite a bit during your introduction, but want to dive a little deeper, especially with your relationship to that on Ways and Means. Some of the projects that you've been a part of and some of the things you're hoping to be a part of in the future should you be elected.
Yeah, so, I think it's been said that Livingston Parish hasn't had a new road in 102 years. I think that's the number I've heard. One of the first things that we were able to do was break ground on Cook Road shortly after we got elected. That's a project that's been worked on, talked about for the longest. But one of the first projects that I was able to put in as a new project was the Juban North Extension. That's another project that's been around for 15, 20 years. It's been talked about. Well, we got it funded, and there was a roundabout up at Magnolia Beach Road and 1019 that's been talked about for a while. We got it implemented. We got a new road put in. We've another couple more roads. Range is extremely problematic. There's about 6 phases to fixing Range. The first 2 phases we got in the capital outlay last year. That's a Demco road, another road that's been talked about for 15, 20 years. We've got it funded. And then we're going to do some improvements on Home Depot. But I can tell you that what I've done is in my district, Senator Pope and I have met with DOTD, Capital Region Planning Commission, City of Walker's mayor, City of Denham's mayor. We tried to meet monthly when we could, and we have sat down and tried to figure out our solutions, how we work together, how we fix our problems. So my focus has been on the 4 main arteries in my district, which is Forest Club Road, Range, Juban, and then 447. And we've sat down and we've analyzed the solutions. We've set priorities, we've set sequences, and we have to funding. And we've been very, very successful. Forest Club Road, with all the development, is under a review. It's under we've got some money allocated to actually study that. It takes a while to get those things in place. Range, we just got the first couple of roads put in, that first couple of phases. Juban, Juban North widening is done. It's being constructed right now. We've got those issues fixed. We got the Juban North working, and then 447. We got $28 million to go from interstate south. We're going 4 lane to Buddy Ellis Road. We're going 3 lane to Joe May. That leaves us a chokehold at the bridge at the interstate. And working with Congressman Gates, trying to get money earmarked for next session for us to get that bridge fixed. So we have just, but there's a process. And as a we all have our ideas on what the priorities should be. And most of that depends upon the traffic that you set in. But my priorities may be different from your priorities, and your priorities may be different from your priorities. So the difficult part as a legislator or anybody that's making those decisions is what's best for the area and what's best for the group. So, I believe in working with people who want to pull in the same direction. And we've been meeting and we've been trying to identify them. And the most important thing is we've got results. We've doubled capital outlay in Livingston Parish in 4 years. That's a tremendous accomplishment. And we've got a lot more to do. And in the Senate, I'm going to continue it.
Same question, but with drainage, and you can talk about drainage from sort of an overarching standpoint, but also want you to make a couple of specific comments about the Amite River Basin Commission, specifically some of the changes you've made that have given it a little more, I hate to use this term because it's not very professional, but a little more oomph.
Well, we've given it a lot of oomph, I think the biggest thing for the Amite River Basin and why they've been ineffective all these years is just funding, for the most part. And you've got to have a game plan. You got to have a direction. You've got to really be working in trying to solve some problems. And I think I think the commission has been focused too much on the co-meet, and they haven't looked at their whole purview, which is the 7 parish area. And for Livingston Parish, that just really puts us, where we're not getting the most. I mean, the co-meet diversion is a phenomenal project primarily for East Baton Rouge. It's going to provide 5 to 7 feet of relief in Central. It's going to provide 0 flash flooding relief in Livingston Parish. It's going to provide moderate flooding along the floodplain along the river. The co-meet impact area is where the money was collected to draw down or collect the matching fund requirements. They identified the co-meet impact area, and the only area in Livingston Parish that's in that is from Forest Club Road to the river. So it's just a small sliver. So what we have to do is we have to demand more. We can't sit back status quo and just expect, the Congress, the U.S. Congress, to fund our projects. We got to go out and do something about it. So I think the biggest oomph that we've given them is that we've given them a direction, we've given them more authority, and we've got the right people there. We've gone after some funding, and we're demanding some results. So I think that's the biggest push for Amite River Basin, and how that breaks down to what we got in front of us. When Congressman Gray's, after the 2016 flood, they brought in $1.2 billion to help areas, prevent another repeat of the 2016 flood. Well, that was sent here for our area, the ones that were really impacted. Well, the governor did an executive order. He decided to set up a Louisiana Watershed Initiative by executive order, and they created 8 regions across the state, and they made it a competitive base, application. That 1.2 billion you had to go through it competitively. Well, the first round 1, Livingston Parish didn't get $1, so nobody got impacted more than we did. 94% of our parish was flooded. We didn't get one single dollar, and that's a travesty. So, I took the Louisiana Watershed Initiative to challenge them, and I tried to get them to give us, I think the Amite River Basin is structured that we should have our own region. And you mentioned earlier that it's got a lot of, look, the Amite River Basin is the only floodplain that statutorily exists. We've got more authority than CPRA, which is doing all the coastal restoration in the south, and Pontchartrain Levee District. We've got the authority to make a difference. We just got to do it. So, we filed a resolution. Senator White filed one on the Senate side, and we got the Amite River Basin its own region. So now we're Region 9, and consequently, since we have not been getting our fair share of money, they gave us $100 million for that distribution. So, the Amite River Basin has really postured that if they do things right, they can get some stuff done. And all we got to do is give the people the confidence that they've got a game plan and they can actually get work done, and then we can get more. So, it's in its infancy stages from my perspective. We're glad to have the co-meet. Don't get me wrong. We'll take any relief we can get, but Livingston Parish can't be satisfied with the co-meet diversion because it's estimated it's only going to give us 6 inches at the interstate. And we of relief, and we need to have more. So that's probably been one of the big things I've worked on. But I've also passed legislation to have CPRA and ARBC study dredging of the Amite River, dredging the confluent areas in Lake Marpole, looking at the impacts of other parishes, their pumps and their levees on how it impacts us. So we've got that in place. We've lobbied for Congress, U.S. Congress, to give us some more money in the basin. And another piece of legislation that I filed was I had been trying to do something with that interstate barrier out there. And when I first got it to the legislator, I went to DOTD and said, we're going to fix that barrier. And we negotiated, gave them 2 years to give us an opportunity for them to study, to give us a solution. They gave us a report back, was just, the solutions were unacceptable. And so I filed a bill this past session, and we're going to make DOTD give us a solution. And that wasn't easy because DOTD fought it. There's a lawsuit out there. It's sticky. It's complicated. But we can't wait. Ponchatoula just settled their lawsuit from 1983 last year. We can't wait 40 years for a settlement to get some relief on that barrier. So I've passed legislation. We're going to force DOTD to give us a solution, and I won't stop until it gets it done.
So the last part, and you have about 3 minutes, is education. And of course, there's 2 parts to this. There's public schools, but there's also teachers. So talk quickly about maintaining funding through the MFP for public schools, and then talk about what you've tried to do to help teachers and attract teachers.
Yeah, so let me just broaden that even just a little bit more. There's other things that are important to Livingston Parish than just our K to 12. We got a community college, North Shore Community College, just in our parish that that's doing a phenomenal job. Senator Pope and I have been working for 2 years to get them some additional funding. We just got $10 million to expand that campus. Southeastern has a footprint here as well. So, it's not only just a K to 12, it's our community and technical colleges. It's also our universities. I have a phenomenal relationship with all those folks. We're working really hard together. Our teachers, the policy makers at Baton Rouge, the reason I went to the Capitol, have been driving our teachers away. And, you can go to graduations, you can go to any principal and ask them about the filling their spots. We have been forcing them away. Teachers, I don't know the first educator that went to work that said, I'm going to make a good living. Every one of them wants to be a teacher because they love their job. What the policymakers have done is the policymakers have taken that love away, and because of all the garbage that they put on them. And we got to take that off of them. And we got to, I passed, I got a resolution. We did a task force. I got a 17-member task force of stakeholders across the state. We set it up for 2 years. We extended it for another year. We're trying to identify our recruitment, recovery, and retention of our teachers, and we're making a difference. From a funding, look, we just need to fund public education, and we need to fund higher ed. It's just that simple, and we haven't been doing that. The MFP is the minimum foundation, the minimum amount of dollars that's required to effectively have a school system. And we're just doing the minimum. There's a 2.75% additional that can go in there for growth that I think in 8 years it's only been funded once. So if you think about inflation, you think about the cost of everything, we're not funding public education. We're not funding it adequately. And there's a lot of struggles for that because we're competing with funding across the state. But it's a priority. There's nothing more important. There's nothing more important to our parish, to our state, and to our nation than educating our future in all regards. When you look at recidivism with judiciary systems, or our social issues, our economic issues, everything, it falls back on education. So, as a society, it's just something that's got to be a priority for us, and it's a priority for me, and we're doing the best we can.
Well, so that brings us to the end of our time. We're going to give you a second to make a closing remark, and then let people know if they have more questions about what you had to say tonight, how they can get in touch with you, and where they can find more information about you.
Yeah. So let me just close by saying this. If you've in Livingston Parish, our campaign season has been very toxic for some races, specifically mine. I don't think there's a more dirty political race than what I'm going through right now. And I just want everyone to know that, there's a reason for that. Those special interests that want to privatize public education at the Capitol, I've been getting in their way, and I'm stopping them from their agenda of privatizing our public education. And consequently, they have targeted my race, and they're probably going to spend over $1 million trying to defeat me. $1 million in this race right here to try to defeat me. And they can't beat me on my record. They can't beat me on how hard I work. They can't beat me on how engaged I am. So what they resorted to is they resorted to lying, and they resorted to misinformation. So my challenge would be, I bet you I've heard 50 lies told about me in the last 8 months. And my name and my integrity mean more to me than anything. And to have that tarnished is unacceptable. So the only thing I would say is to anybody out there who's heard something, who's heard the noise, don't get bogged down in the noise, ask questions, and please reach out to me. And I'll be glad to discuss the truth about what's going on. But I'll say this, just closing real quick, is that nobody's going to work harder for Livingston Parish than I am. I love my parish. I'm engaged in my parish. We're there, and I just appreciate everyone's consideration. I want to thank all my supporters, and 17 years of service. I want to thank all those who've helped us get to this point. I want to thank my wife for being here and supporting me and allowing me to do this for now. And so thank you. And I'd just like to ask everyone for their support and vote and prayers. You know, this campaign is tough. I ask, don't pray for me, pray for my family, because they've been put through a lot, and they don't deserve that.
Well, thank you, sir. Can you tell people how they can get in touch with you and where they can find more information?
Yeah, buddymincey.com is one place. And of course, they can just reach out to me. We have a very active social media platforms, and you can reach out to us there, and just give us a call.
Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time and being part of the program. And we are going to take a quick 60-second break, and then I believe Mr. Jason Amato is up next.